saw her sitting there at a bench in the park. She had asked me to grab some of her things from my apartment, so I was holding a bag. I had planned for a lot of situations, but when I was walking up the stairs to grab her curling brush and straightening iron, I knew I only had to focus on one. I stood in front of her, but she was on her phone, and she looked up and she was surprised to see me, and I said, "Hey there, stranger," and she smiled. I think I nailed it. On the walk over to the park, I was practicing different versions of the phrase, "Hey there, stranger, hey there, stranger, hey there, stranger, hey there, stranger." She thanked me for bringing her stuff. She had a bag from Rite Aid, and I asked her what was in it, and she talked about dinner, food for her cat, and I imagined her in the kitchen. She told me about how her building might get shut down for various code violations, that she doesn't know what she's gonna do, and if it was before, I would have freaked out and thought of all the ways to help her. This time we just laughed. We looked at each other for a bit because I think we had forgotten how the other looked like. She was bundled, so I didn't get to see much of her, but it was cold outside. "What have you been doing? What have you been thinking?" She told me she's had highs and lows, but that she's been really good. She's happy to have her cat around, but I guess the cat isn't as happy yet. Sometimes she would say that she's been really good and I would believe her, and then sometimes she would say it again and I wouldn't believe her. Maybe those were the highs and lows. She told me about her new babysitting job and how she won't have to work as much and basically makes the same amount of money as her old babysitting job. Her old babysitting parents were so upset that she's leaving. The kids love her so much, they try to convince her to stay, but I guess it was too late to convince her. Because if they really wanted her to stay, they would have done more for her while she was still there. I understand those parents' regret. She's happy to have friends now. She's making a new version of herself, I guess, version 2.0. So I'm excited, but I'm scared, but I shouldn't be scared. I should be excited. I try to find out what this new version of her means, but she doesn't want to seem to tell me, and that worries me, but I know I shouldn't be worried. I told her I was a lot happier now and that I was so sorry she had to spend so much time with me while I wasn't. She seemed surprised, but genuinely happy for me. We stared at each other almost as if we were both thinking that we were both okay enough to be together, but I think we both had the realistic realization at the same time as we looked away. I think I looked down and she looked up. Our conversations had been positive, they had been happy. In reality, I probably wanted to hold her as close as I possibly could, but I came in with the mindset like I knew I had to act to seem like a reasonable person, and I didn't lie. Nothing I said was a lie, but how I acted was a lie. I wanted to scream and yell and not be rational. I wanted to lay out my emotions. Never did that, I kept my cool. We talked some more about happiness and being your own person, moving into the big city while still in a relationship from college, not being able to discover who you are as a person, as an adult, because life is so different as an adult and relationships are different. She seemed to agree. We had some moments of silence, but They weren't bad moments of silence, at least not for me. It was that comfortable silence that you can only have with someone that you've shared everything with. At one point, she put her head on my shoulder, and I felt love in my heart, warmth inside of my chest, and my eyes widened, and I had to try so hard to keep my breathing slow. It was this somber happiness that I hadn't felt before. But I felt her feel it too, and I was happy to share something with her. It was getting late, it was getting cold, and we started walking towards the subway and paused at the top of the subway as if she thought I was gonna leave her there. I smiled and told her I would take her down. And she paused again at the gate as if I wasn't gonna go through the gates for her. When we passed the gates, the train was coming in, and this train is slow. It comes every 10 minutes or so if you're lucky, so I looked at her and asked if she would wait for the next train before leaving. I think she was happy I asked. It reminded me of our first date and how she was happy that I asked her to come inside after the concert. We sat at the benches, smiled and sighed. She put her head on my shoulder again, and I put my arm around her back, my left hand on her leg, and I wasn't sure if that was okay, but I kept it on there. I brought up my birthday being this weekend. I think she looked guilty, but kind of in a funny way. I think I even smirked a little. She asked me if I had any plans, and I laughed. I told her I was supposed to look up places earlier in the day, but I didn't, and I was also thinking about having a house party, but I don't think I have enough people to invite. She was laughing at me with this smile, and that made me laugh, but she was also sad at the same time, and that made me sad. I told her I was gonna miss all her little birthday surprises that she usually does for me. She smiled because I think we remembered all of the old birthday surprises together. I told her I felt like she replaced me with her roommate and did everything we used to do with her. She apologized, but I'm not sure why. I don't blame her for anything. She didn't do it to hurt me. She needed to do it for herself, and I didn't understand that at first, but when I did understand, is that I love her and this is what she needed. And it's always been whatever my girl needed, she got. The train came in and she got up and I stayed sitting, and she looked at me like, this is it, come on, get up, what are you doing? I smiled and I got up and I gave her a hug and I gave her a kiss on the lips and a smile. And she walked over to the subway and she stood right at the door, holding onto the railing, staring at me and smiling. It reminded me of a time that I said goodbye to her as her and her sister were leaving for New Jersey, and we were so silly and happy that time because I was gonna miss her so much, and she thought it was so funny how much I was gonna miss her. It wasn't funny this time. She looks beautiful standing there, and I remember all the reasons why I love her. She gives me that smile and I'll never forget. I looked at her longingly and smiled back. I didn't take my eyes off her as the train pulled away into the tunnel, and she didn't take her smile down either. I like to think that she was still smiling even when I couldn't see her anymore. I like to think that she'll never stop smiling.